Is a phrase too stupid to live because of the actual words involved, or because of the feels that it evokes? The answer is both. Hi there, my name is Katie Morgan. I am an indie fantasy author and fiction editor, and welcome to the first episode of Stupid Phrases, a series where I talk about all the dumb phrases I keep hearing in the creative community that I really wish people would stop using. So the point of the series isn't to make fun of people for using these words and these terms. I think it's really important to think about what these words mean, how we're using them, and the sort of emotional baggage we're bringing to that. This episode, we will be talking about a phrase I hear all the time in writing communities, and that phrase is aspiring author. Let's look at the dictionary definitions of the words involved. So, according to Merriam-Webster, aspiring is an adjective meaning desiring and working to achieve a particular goal, having aspirations to attain a specified profession, position, etc. For my fellow word nerds, aspiring actually comes from the Latin word aspirare, which means to breathe upon, which is kind of irrelevant, but also kind of cool. So that's aspiring. The second word in this phrase is author, which is a noun meaning the writer of a literary work, such as a book. Note that in this definition, it does not say anywhere the author has to have a published work. It just says that they have created a work. That may give you an idea of why I hate this phrase, but let's get into it a little bit. Here's the context for the Suckitude. This phrase relies on an assumption that I think can be really negative and detrimental to creatives, and that is the idea that an author means you've been published. So that means you haven't achieved true authorness until someone else has decided that you are worthy. That an agent or a publisher or the market, if you're indie published, will determine when you have achieved this level. And you're not a real author until you have hit this goal. And I think this is a real problem because there's nothing wrong with aspiring to publication. That's awesome, and a lot of us do aspire to publication. But if you are basing your worth as a writer and an author on this idea that you're not really an author until you're published, then you're sort of belittling all the work you've done up until now to learn the craft and to practice and to create all of the things that you've already created. No matter how much work you've already put into being an author, no matter how much you've already created, you're not really an author. You're still an aspiring author until you hit some sort of arbitrary goal. And that everything you do up until then is less important because you need someone else to tell you that you're really an author. I think the really important thing here is that publication is awesome and it is a worthy thing to aspire to, but your legitimacy doesn't come from the fact that you're published. You are still an author by virtue of having created something, and that process of creation is just as important, if not more important, than going through the publication process. So when I hear the term aspiring author, what I hear is someone who hasn't gotten to the point where they can accept that the work they've put in is enough in and of itself. That you don't have to wait around for someone else to decide that you are now past the gatekeeper, that you are now a real author. Someone else doesn't get to decide when you've made it. You decide that. I suppose arguably you are an aspiring author if you've never written a story before, and all of us were that at some point, but I think a lot of us have been writing for a long time, and I just think it's really important to understand that that is valid and that you are an author. You are part of the creative community, regardless of what sort of professional aspirations you might have. In conclusion, publication doesn't lend you legitimacy. You are already legitimate as a creator, whether or not you are published. You are an author because you're writing and you're dedicating yourself to the craft and to learning to be a better writer and to be a better author. The work you are creating now is valid in and of itself, and it's just as valid as anything you might create in the future or anything you might choose to put in line for publication. So I really wish people would stop using this phrase. It's almost always inaccurate, and it really encourages us to think of ourselves as less than. I think it's a way of belittling ourselves and is not super helpful in the grander context of being creative and having a creative community. That's it for this episode of Stupid Phrases. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you would like to be kept in the loop about the rest of this series and the additional series that I'll be putting out very soon, please consider subscribing. And if you're curious about me and my work, I will put some links in the description to my contemporary fantasy novel, Dark Empathy, and also my work as a fiction editor. Thanks again, and I will see you next time.